Sparkly and warm greetings again. Today we're going to make a quick little neck warmer, and I'm using polar fleece, but there are a variety of fabrics that you can use and change it up to work with your wardrobe. But the special thing that we're going to be showing is my twice as nice stitch. And this is actually just a 3 thread wide stitch, but we're tweaking the looper tensions. And I'll also show you my serger embellished elastic button loops and refer you to a previous tip clip on how to do that. I don't want to go into all of the specifics on that in today's tip clip simply because it's in a previous one. But we'll get started on that. And if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And let's get busy and take a look at the dimensions and what we need for this beautiful little neck warmer. I cut my polar fleece so that it's in the stretchy direction crosswise on this, but that really doesn't matter because it's not going to be a tight fit around your neck. But I cut it about 6 inches wide, and I trimmed off about 1/4 inch on either edge when I was doing the twice as nice stitch. So the finished dimension is 5.5 inches wide. These dimensions are all variable depending on how close a fit you want on your neck, the type of fabric that you're using, or the look that you want. And I cut this lengthwise about 30 inches long. Again, it's variable. Here are my serger embellished elastic button loops. And I just attached those on the back with a hand stitch. You can see that this is not couture sewing, but it holds, and these are not going to come out. If you wanted to put a little dot of fray check on the ends of the decorative thread that covers the 1/8 inch wide elastic, that will help also. I did not, but I'm really not worried that the edges are going to come out at all. So, and I have 2 fun buttons at the other end. And again, where you place those is your call because it's a matter of how big they are, how many you want to use. You could even do a nice little buttonhole just by cutting a slit in polar fleece. You do not have to do a machine buttonhole at all because it won't fray. Polar fleece is a knit. So, and here is a look at that twice as nice stitch. The white thread is my upper looper thread. The red thread is my lower looper thread. And when I turn this, you'll see the lower looper thread wraps around and is pulled to the top. So essentially, it's the opposite of a rolled hem, and also a wider stitch. So I think when I was positioning the button loops and the buttons, I just wrapped this around my neck and found a place that I liked for the size of the buttons. These are buttons that I had in my vast button collection. And I just found what looked the way I wanted it to look on that, and then position my buttons and sew those on. But again, all of these things are variable. And as I said, this is not couture sewing. It's quick and easy. And that's why it makes such a great gift idea when you're kind of hurrying around. And if you have some polar fleece scraps around, this would be perfect to use it up for. Plus, it's really warm and it's cute, so it's great. I think that's about all we have to say for the table shot. So let's go to the machine and see how we do this. Before I do the actual stitching, let's talk about the setup. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be doing a 3 thread wide overlock, which on the L890 is stitch number 3. So I have this set up on the default settings, and you can see all of the tensions are on the normal setting. The stitch length is at 2.5 and the differential feet is 1. Well, I want to change all of that around, but keep the 3 thread wide overlock. I'll have my stitch width, my cutting width on 9. I want a nice wide stitch, but I want to tweak this and get that twice as nice double stripe of colors on the edge of the polar fleece. Now, this is a specialty stitch, and working on polar fleece, I'm not going to be doing this during the summer or spring, but and I may forget what my settings are by next winter if I want to make some new ones. But guess what? My machine won't forget because it has a memory. So I'm going to just touch the little heart icon and go to my saved settings. And I have twice as nice 12 weight in my loopers, and I'm working on polar fleece. So I'm going to touch that, and you can see these are changed. My left needle tension is on 4.7. My upper looper tension is on 8.5, which is much higher to pull that lower looper over the edge to the top of the fabric. And my lower looper tension is a little bit lower on 4.0. I've shortened up my stitch length to 1.1 because I want good coverage on it, on the edge of the fabric. And because I'm going crosswise, the stretchy direction on the polar fleece, I don't want that edge to wave and ruffle. So I brought my differential feed setting up to 1.8. Now, I'm going to do a brown and black stitch along the edge of this because I have some cute buttons that have brown and black in them. So I have black thread in my left overlock needle. You will see the inside of the stripe will be kind of a toasty brown color. It's a spaghetti 12 weight Egyptian cotton, and this is included in my Bayside Blooms collection. It's color number 21, and black 12 weight spaghetti in my lower looper, and that's going to be the outside stripe. So, and you can actually see the little thread chain, and I've tested all my settings, so I don't have to do that on camera. I did that before when we were getting set up for this. So I think I'm all set to go on my actual neck warmer. I have my C27 foot on, which is clear, so that you can see those two stripes being formed by the one stitch. And one other little tip that I have is when you're stitching on polar fleece, be sure to clean out your serger on a frequent basis. Polar fleece is very, very linty and dusty. And you want to make sure that you keep your machine nice and clean. So that's my little housekeeping tip for the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start stitching down one long end, and polar fleece is bulky. I'm just going to raise my presser foot just to get that right up under the knife. And as I said, I'll probably trim off about a 1/4 inch. And again, if you're not perfectly straight every inch of the way, no big deal. It's a neck warmer. It'll be fine. So let's start stitching. And also, whenever you're stitching with decorative heavier threads, hang onto your thread chain in back of the foot so that it doesn't have trouble getting onto the beginning of the fabric. That's on any serger that you're using. So once you start stitching on the fabric, you should be pretty good as far as being able to guide it along. Sometimes it takes a little extra to get it going. Okay, I finished the first edge. I'm going to continue around the other 4 edges. I am not doing a continuous corner on the polar fleece because it's stretchy. And I'm just afraid it'll make funny little points when I go around that. If it were a table runner that was made out of quilting cotton with batting in it, that wouldn't be a problem. But on the polar fleece, I want nice straight corners. I'm positioned to do the next short edge, but I don't know if you can notice, but right under here, even though my differential feed is up to 1.8, as I was pulling it out of the machine, I stretched the corner a little bit. So I don't want to have that. So that's why I'm going to trim that off and have a nice right angle on that, holding on to my thread tails, and I'm ready to start the second edge. I also wanted to mention that on this machine, I can put my needle up or down, just like on your sewing machine. I want my needle to go up and stay up when I end because I want my knife up nice and high, because if I want to slide in my next edge, with the knife all the way up in the top position, I can slide my polar fleece in there. And you can see how thick and lofty it is. So that's an important point to remember. Okay. Another great tip when you're doing stitching with a thicker decorative thread, when you're beginning your next edge, Here's a great reason to have a sample that matches exactly with your project fabric. I popped my sample fabric on the back of the presser foot to make it easy for the machine to begin stitching on the next edge. By keeping that foot level, you'll find you'll get a much better result with thick threads, especially on thicker layers like polar fleece. My edges are all twice as nice stitched, and you can actually, on the inside of this, you can see how that lower looper thread is being pulled. Well, you can't see it being pulled to the right side from here, but you can see it's all black on the inside, and then you see the two different colors on the outside. Now, I've got two different buttons, which I think is kind of a fun way to go for something like a neck warmer, or even on a lot of different garments and things like that. I think it's kind of fun if you have two different ones that sort of go together. So what I've done is position those. I am going to pin those positions just so that I can keep it as a reference point for when I put on my twice as nice button loops. And those I'm just going to stitch on by hand. I'm just going to pin right along where the center of those buttons are. Here is my already done serger embellished elastic button loops. And I always cut a big long piece and stitch it because sometimes at the beginning and end, you might not love the way the stitching looked. You have to sometimes give it an inch or so to get going. But anyway, I'm going to stitch this on. Just a quick little tip. I'm sewing on the buttons by hand. I did the button loops with my machine with just a real narrow zigzag just to go across and tack those in place. But so that I don't have a thread tail on the wrong side, I leave the thread tail on the top. I just stitch through. I cut the thread tail short, but that's hidden under the button, so it doesn't show when it's done. So I just usually like to take one stitch to get my position anchored. I can um, pull out my pin that I use to anchor this in, and then I think I'll do it in this direction. Then I'll come through the whole thing and just take a few passes. It's not going to need a lot simply because it's not a super high stress area, but you want it tacked on so that it holds certainly. And basically, I'm kind of sewing this almost blind, but oh well, that's okay. Thanks for joining me today. And as always, if you have comments or questions, post them below or email me, gail@gailpatrice.com. And I'll see you again soon. Happy sewing and serging.